Yeah. So I have stiff competition now. Yeah. Oh, very nice.
I'm just doing the time.
I have stiff competition now. The Trump is talking now.
That's right.
Oh, that's why you want to see. That's what
Yeah.
Now you can figure out who really cares about this year.
What?
Now you can figure out who really cares about this year.
Okay, yeah, you'll see. You, Chaim, you sit here. Okay, and you'll be my backup in my back. Okay, that's my grandson. He's practicing. He's learning the Megilah in his shul this year.
Wow.
You see, you see Akiva's Purim sign there.
Oh wow! That's an
I
ancient
thought it was
one.
like placemat.
No. My grandson Akiva made it. How many years ago? It was many years
A
ago.
while.
Yeah,
How
many.
you doing?
All right. So I have a little bit. I think that tonight a little bit will. How do they say? Will be kind of all over the place. What? Eli Hush, my God. The great grandson.
Spät ist es von Alban, der ist mit Leben der Rebbe.
Eli comes to town. Also, Eli and Eli. Hi. Ari, how are you? Okay, come sit down. All right, so now we'll begin. First thing, everyone, thank you everyone for coming. I know it's not so easy, not such a convenient time. וכל עבדי המלך אשר בשער המלך קוראים ומשתחווים להמון כי כן ציווה לו המלך ומרדכי לא יכרע ולא ישתחווה. The pasuk before it says that Gidal ha'achar advarim ha'ele Gidal ha'melech Achashverosh es Haman ben Hamdasa ha'agalgi v'yinaseyu. It says Gidal, right? He made him great. And v'yinasehu, he elevated him. Vayosem es kisa ma'al kol ha'sarim asher ito. What is the achar advarim ha'ele? There are many perushim in Medrash. What is the achar advarim ha'ele? So, the Al-Shech HaKodesh explains that Achar Dvarim Ha'ele is that Achashverosh was looking to convince Esther to tell him where she came from. Right? He didn't, because she kept the secret, she didn't want to say anything, she didn't talk, nothing. Right? And he tried every way to convince her to talk, right? And she didn't. So he was looking, he kovedes b'sulo shenis, and vayiten maseis ki yad hamelech, everything as an incentive, nothing happened, okay? Right? So he thought now that he was going to do her a major favor. And then maybe that would be an incentive for her to talk. What was the major favor? He was going to take the person who was responsible for her becoming queen and elevate that person, and that would be some kind of some show of gratitude to her, right? And therefore that would be an incentive for her to talk. Okay, that's the thing. So in other words, so he thought that she would be very, very appreciative that he elevated Haman, because Haman was responsible by Yomem Memuchan Lo Lamelech Levado, that he was the head Yud Kofetz Barosh. And he was certain, the Melech, that if he's going to honor Haman, it's going to be an incentive for her to speak. Okay, the way it worked out, it was v'nahafachu. Anyway, so that's what it says, that Gidol HaMelech Achashverosh es Haman ben Hamdasa, he made him great, and v'inaseyu. V'inaseyu is more, because vayosem es kisam al kol asorem asher ito, v'chol avdei HaMelech asher b'shar HaMelech. Gidol means he elevated. He made him great. He gave him a very, very important position. V'yanasehu means that he not only he created, because we say, let's say that he made him a prime minister, right? He really didn't make him a prime minister. He was a Mishnah Lamelech. In other words, he created like a new position. Understand? Like for Elon Musk, a new position that didn't exist before. Okay? And therefore, since he was a Mishnah Melech, then v'chol avdei hamelech mishtachavim laman, because the prime minister at that time probably was the head of a government, and you didn't have to bow to him as you bowed to the king. You had to show respect. But Haman was v'yanaseyu. He created a position like Yosef was the Mishnah Melech. It was a new position, because until the time of Yosef HaTzadik, there was no Mishnah Melech in Mitzrayim, and now he made them the Mishnah Melech, and he said, Rak HaKiseh Egdal Memeka. Everything, okay, so this is what happened here, and therefore, he said, V'chol avdei hamelech asher b'shar hamelech korim mishtachavim laHaman. Why? Because Haman isn't only Gidol HaMelech HaChasher, he's not only the prime minister, or and those countries they call him the vizier, right? But he is now a Mishnah Melech, and you have to do him the homage, right? Okay, fine. So the pasuk v'chol avdei hamelech asher b'shar hamelech korin mishtachavim laHaman kichein tziva laHamelech. Very, very difficult psukim to understand. I'll explain why I think that the psukim are difficult psukim. Explain. That is, the medrash is yodua, but it's not quoted usually properly. Okay, everyone knows it, but not many know it really, accurately, the exact detail. It says that Rabbi Yehuda v'Rab Levi b'shem Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda, these were from the Amoraim in Eretz Yisrael. B'shem Rabbi Yochanan, kol mokum shenema b'Megilas zu lamelech Achashverosh. When it says the Melech Achashverosh, that Achashverosh is named, right? The Melech Achashverosh HaKosav Medaber. So the pasuk is talking about the Melech Achashverosh. However, the Chol Mokom Shenema LeMelech Stam, wherever it says Melech Stam and it doesn't name the Melech, then Mishamesh Kodesh V'chol. Okay, most of us know the medrash that we've heard many times, that if it says Melech HaChashverosh, it's Melech. If it says just Melech Stam, it's Chol. But it's not so simple. It's more complicated than that, because it says it's Mishamesh Kodesh V'chol. Okay, so what does that mean? Pashtus, it means the Mefarshim and the medrash say it could be either Kodesh or Chol. Now, who decides it? So this is in reality. How do you decide if it's Kodesh or Chol? So this is just like the Gemara says in Chagiga, that the Meleches Cholamod is Mosar Chachamim HaTorah LaChachamim, that the Chachamim should decide which is Melacha Cholamod and which is not a Melacha Cholamod. So the same thing over here, it could Hamelech Stam could be Kodesh, it could be Chol, and Mosar LaChachamim, that they should determine in each case, is it Kodesh or is it Chol? Right? Okay? It's not so simple. Right? Okay, now. The drinks, if anyone would care. So here now. V'chol avdei hamelech asher b'shar hamelech kodim mishtachavim laHaman ki chen tzivo laHamelech. Okay? Madua to'eves mitzvahs hamelech. So if we take the medrash of Rabbi Yochanan, and you say that this Hamelech could be Kodesh and it could be Chol, and if you decide, if the Hachra of the Chachamim is that this Hamelech is Chol, so what does it mean? It means V'chol Avdei Hamelech, all of the Erlech Yidden, right? Those that the Avdei Hamelech, the Melech Machrei Amlochim, Asher B'shar Hamelech. B'shar Hamelech means that they're very, very B'nei Aliyah. Kodim Mishtachavim laHaman ki chen tzivo laHamelech. Right? So what is Mordechai lo yichra v'lo yishtachaveh, and the Vayomra Avdei Hamelech, the Avdei Hamelech, again the Erlech Yidden, they said the Madua Ato Oves Mitzvahs Hamelech, the Melech, Mutal Hachnif Roshoyim Bo'olam Hazeh, something like that. That the Shah Misachekes lo Haman. So Madua, right? So it would be an entirely different. Why would anyone explain the pasuk in that way? Why? So for this, we have to see a little bit, a shtickle Rambam, in the beginning of Hilchas Avodah Zarah. The Rambam explains, remember that the Pasuk says that in the Toldos of the Asara Doros from Noach, from Adam to Noach. So it is the fourth or the fifth generation was Enosh, and Oz Hu Chalikra b'Shem Hashem. At that time in history, in development, so that was the Hu Chalikra b'Shem Hashem. That was the time that people became associated and went astray with Avodah Zarah. Until that time, there was no Avodah, but Oz, at that time, Hu Chalikra b'Shem Hashem. Hu Chal there, according to the Targum, according to that means Hu Chal means Chulin, right? And they became Hu Chalikra b'Shem Hashem. So we won't see the whole Rambam, but we'll see a little bit the beginning. B'mei Enosh, To'u b'nei Adam, To'us Gadol. He says there was a very, very great mistake that was made. V'nivara atzas chachmei osa hador, the enish atzma min atoyim hoyo. And people, and they say each bar means someone who's common, who doesn't have a developed seichel. And he said that somehow the seichel of the anshe hador, including enish, it kind of went backwards and not forwards. V'zu hoyte ta'usam. Omru, hoil ve'elekim bara kochavim ela ve'galgalim lahaneges ha'olam. He says that the Rebbeinu Shalom created the Shemesh and the Areach and the Kochavim, the Mazolas, and he created them to bring order to the universe. Unesonam b'morem v'cholak lem koved v'hem shamoshim ha'mishamshim lefonav. And they said that the piyut that we sing Shabbos, the Kel Odon, right, is all really about this. Ru'uyin heim l'shabchum lefaram ulachaloik lahem kovad. He says that now, he says, V'zeu retzoin hakel baruch hu legadlo lechabed mi shegedoloi v'chibda. And this is the rotzen of the Rebbeinu Shalom, that they should be given covered, right, to elevate them, to honor them, because he honored them, and therefore he put them as his shamoshim, and therefore the one that honors them honors him. Kemo shahamelech roitze lechabed ha'omdim lefonov v'zehu kavod shamelech. The melech insists those that serve him, you have to honor them as well, and this is the kavod hamelech. Okay, so that was the original the Doranish. Kevin sha'ola doveza al libam v'ischilu livnos lekachavim hecholos ulahakrib lahem karbonos leshabcha lefaram bidvar melishtachavis lemulam. What happened? And the Doros went on. It didn't remain that way. Why? Because Havera is Gereres Havera. So what happened? They began to build temples and Mizbeach and to offer karbonos and to bow to them. Okay? And they thought, because they thought that the more that they show this honor and this deference to the Mishosim, the Mishamshim, they're showing this measure of respect to the Rebbeinu Shalom. And this was what the Ikar Avodas Kachavim was. In other words, that there was no denial of the Kavayachal, none whatsoever, but they thought that since he created the Tzvo HaShamayim, what they call them the hosts of the heaven, so obviously, they have to be respected as well. And then they progressed a little bit further, and they said, well, maybe we should worship them and we should sacrifice to them. But there was no denial of the Ikar role and the supremacy of the Kavayachal. Okay. Let's go on a little bit. Afterwards, it developed further, right? It declined further. And the Nevi Sheker said, "V'omer shehakel tziva, v'omer lahem ivdu korchav ploini, o kol hakochavim, v'krivu lo, v'nitzchu lo, kach v'kach, ubono heichel v'asu tzirosai." And then, so they okay, we have to actually worship them, and we're not going to worship them merely as servants of the Tzva Shamayim, but they have their own powers, and it went mero el ro, and until the time that they created all kinds of idols, they created all kinds of temples and all kinds of mizbechas, and so the avodah zarah developed from a measure of great respect to the Meshasa Hashem, as we're saying Kelodim, the whole piyut of Kelodim that we sing Shabbos is about that, and it developed into a full scale avodah zarah where they were worshiping, Omrim la'etz avi ata ule even at yulidetoni, right? Ami be'etza yishol umaklo yagidlo. That they began to worship and they began to believe that these surahs had the ability to do for them, to bring them good fortune or misfortune. This is okay. And the Rambam goes on and he speaks about this and he says that it went from bad to worse until the time of Avraham Avinu. Okay? Right. It went, however, it went beyond that. There was a point that because Kol Zman, that what the Rambam is explaining here prevailed, so there was no denial of the Kavayochel, the Eibishter. There was no denial. But the idea was that the Rotzen Haboira is that these Mishasei, right, Elyon, right. That's why I said that what do I say? Malachei Rachamim Mishasei Elyon, right? In the Sliches, in the Piyutim, in the Pismen, Malachei Rachamim, and that's why there were those that they didn't want to say this. They didn't want to say the Machnis Rachamim. They didn't want to say Malachei Rachamim Mishasei Elyon, right? That they wanted. Because they felt that was part of this toast. But the one thing that there was no denial whatsoever of the fact that what should we say, that the CEO of the company was the Kavayochel. There was no denial. Okay. So let's go back a moment to the Megillah. Go back a moment to the Megillah. So could we see now that if Rabbi Yochanan says that wherever the Megillah says HaMelech Stam, it's Meshamesh Kodesh and Chol, so couldn't we see that same toast of the Dar Enesh could lead the Avdei HaMelech Hashem B'Shar HaMelech to think that no, that the Eibishter made Achashverosh the Melech Malchei Amlochim, right? He made him an all-powerful Melech, right? He made him all-powerful, and Haman was appointed by Achashverosh. So therefore, in worshiping or showing homage, whatever you pronounce, to Haman, bowing to Haman, you're bowing to Achashverosh, and you're ultimately bowing to the Ratzon Hashem, right? This was the corruption, let's call it, of the mistake of the Dar Enesh, right? Okay, but the Rambam didn't say. The Rambam talked about the idea of the Kochovim and the Mazolas, and then he spoke about that it went farther, and they began to build tzuras, that the tzuras were the representative of the Kochovim and the Mazolas, but the Rambam didn't mention the worship of one human being to another human being. Right? Well, there was no mention of it. So let's see. I see right now we're not going to get my curriculum is going to be we'll do about half of what I thought we would do, but whatever would
Yaakov didn't
What?
bow to Isaac?
What?
Yaakov didn't bow to Isaac?
No, this was was kavod savicha v'semecha eses l'rabba sochicha godlo.
And the Melech too.
What?
You could bow to the Melech.
You can bow to the melech. You can bow to the melech, but the thing is that we'll see that the bowing to Haman was more than that, because we're going to see when the Tosfos brings the medrash that he put in Avodah Zarah, and he wanted more than this. Okay, fine, all right. It happened that there came a time that the Torah says the Eila told us b'nei Noach Shem Chom v'Yofes. Who were the Bnei Yofes? Okay. So first the Torah says the Bnei Yofes, and the Bnei Ubnei Chom, right? After the Bnei Kush uMitzrayim ufut uChanan. This was the Bnei Chom. There were four. Kush, Umitzrayim, Ufut, Uchnan. Ubnei Kush, Svo, Chavilo, Vesavto, Veramo, Vesavtecha. Ubnei Ramo, Shvo, Udadon. Right? So Kush had 5 sons. Right? He had 5 sons that we mentioned here in the Pasuk. But that wasn't it. Then the Torah comes with another Pasuk, the following Pasuk. The Kush, Yolares Nimrod. Hu heichel lios giba ba'aretz. Hu hayo giba tzayid lifnei Hashem, al kein ye omer, ken nimrod giba tzayid lifnei Hashem. So here in the Ramban, and so in the Chizkuni, that there is that a moment before the Pasuk said, Ubnei Kush, right? Ubnei Kush, Sivo, right? And the Chavila, and Savta, Verama v'Savtecha. Okay? And then it says, V'kush Yolad, he had another son, Nimrod. The Rambam, why wasn't Nimrod mentioned in the first Pasuk? Why wasn't he mentioned? He said, it mentions 5, he had really 6, and it says separately, V'kush Yolad, that's Nimrod. Zog the Ramban explains, because with the birth of Nimrod, a revolution occurred. A revolution occurred which really even contradicted the Ozhucha Likra B'Shem Hashem of Enosh. Because the Dar Enosh, until this time, whatever toast the Ovdei Avodah Zarah made, as the Rambam explains, but there was still one overriding factor. There was one supreme being, and that was the Kaviyachal. There was no one of the Dar Enosh, or those that were influenced by the Dar Enosh, that thought that there was any substitute for the Kaviyachal. The only idea was, the toast was, that there was really one of delegation. That authority has been delegated, has been that the Eibishter is Gavoya Mal Gavoya, and Memela, he's too high to really interfere or involve himself in the day-to-day work. Whatever it was, that was the toast of the Dar Enosh. So the Ramban, but there was no Merida. Nimrod is Meloshen Merida. Okay? When Nimrod came, that's what the Ramban says. Uvekush Yolad es Nimrod, and that was a revolution. Because hu heichel liyos giba ba'aretz, because he decided and he set himself up as a giba ba'aretz, meaning as a substitute, as an alternative to Hashem Yisbarach. Hu haya giba tzayid lifnei Hashem. He was a giba tzayid. What does it mean lifnei Hashem? The giba tzayid was like Esav was tzayid b'piv, that he was able to convince people of his own, what we call divinity, right? Which there was nothing of this prior to this. There was nothing, because from the Dar Enosh until Nimrod, everyone acknowledged that there was no divinity, and if there was what we would call, there was an invested divinity. It means that the Eibishter made the Shemech and the Kochavim and the Yereach and the Mazolas, he gave them of his power, right? Ner le'echad is ner le'meya. But there was nothing, no power, no being that had any authority or power to do anything, right, independent of the Kaviyachal. And Nimrod, he was the Gibber Tzayid, like Esther was the Tzayid Bepiv, and he was able to convince that we're starting here a new line, a new dynasty, just as after Cain killed Hevel, and then Cain was killed, that entire line disappeared, and everything came from a new line of Shais, right? So over here also, he said, now we have there's a new God, there's a new deity, it starts from me. Because he was a Gibber Tzayid, and he was Tzayid Bepiv. Right? Al Kenye Oma B'Kenimrid Gibber Tzayid Lifnei Hashem. Okay? And that's why
I came a little late, but the Lashon Rashi, Oz Huchal, is likwas shmois ha'odam ve'atzavim b'shem Hashem.
Yeah. That was
even Adam they were worshipping.
Yeah, they were, but the
was also shliach from Hashem.
Yeah, but this is before you came out. I read the Rambam, but the way that the Rambam explains in the Ramban, Rashi may interpret a little bit differently. But the Ramban and the Rambam say that there was really no deviation, there was no departure, there was no merida. That's the point. Yeah. The Ramban calls until this time of Nimrod. Okay. Rashi in the Targum I mentioned before that they learn Meloshin Chulen, that they learn Meloshin Chulen. Okay, that's the way that the Ramban explains that it came something new here, something that heretofore had not been. It wasn't Olal Adas by anybody. Such an idea. Fine. However, there's a sefer, the Zera Berach. And the Zera Berach is one of the early Svadish Gedolim Perushim and Chumash. And he explains the union of Nimrod with a little bit differently. And he says that Nimrod, remember the vikuach between Avram Avinu and Nimrod. Avram Avinu broke the Tzlomim, destroyed the Psolim, and he was thrown into prison. He was brought before Nimrod, and Nimrod demanded that Avram Avinu worship him. And it says here, the Medrash here in the end of Pashas Noach gives the whole dialogue between Nimrod and Avram Avinu, and he told him, Nimrod was very clear. He told Avram Avinu, he said, look, now I'm the new God. He said, and the Shemesh and the Yereach and Mishtachavim Li, and Avram Avinu challenged him, and he told him, if that's the case, why does the sun have to rise in the east and set in the west? Why don't you change it? Let it rise in the west and set, and all kinds of vikuchim like this. And in the end, Vayaki lo yochalo, and he saw that it was going to be very, very dangerous, so he threw him into the Kivshan Ha'esh. And Avram Avinu survived the Kivshan Ha'esh, and Nimrod said this person is very, very dangerous, and they exiled him. He took him to the border, and they threw him out of the country. They exiled him. Okay, because he was subversive. He was very, very dangerous. So now, and he gave Avram Avinu a very, very, very difficult argument, and he said that I'm the new God, I'm the new deity, I'm the new this, I'm the new that, right? Right. Memela, Avram Avinu, in his vikuach with Nimrod, and surviving the Kivshan Ha'esh, Avram Avinu was able to show that Nimrod was, however mighty he might be, however powerful he might be, but Nimrod, he wasn't a god. He wasn't a god. Okay? And he is the Giba Ba'aretz, the only one. the only force, but Al Kain Ye'ama Nimrod Gibber Tzayed Lifnei Hashem. In the first pasuk it was Gibber Ba'aretz, and there was no mention of the Kaveh. Later on, he was Gibber Tzayed, but Lifnei Hashem. He was reduced. So what happened here? So Avram Avinu, in his vikuach with Nimrod, Avram Avinu was able to show and to convince all those that were present, certainly when he emerged from the Kibshan Aish, he was able to show that Nimrod is not, he's a mortal man, not more. He's mortal, right? Like I said, the para hina yotze hamayma. He tried to, and Avram Avinu was able to show, and that's why Nimrod, when Avram Avinu emerged from the Kibshan Aish alive, that's why Nimrod was so threatened by Avram, and they exiled him. They were afraid to try to kill him again, because they saw that he enjoyed like such a divine protection, right? But he said, this guy dangerous. You exile him. So Mamela, the Zera Berach teaches the way the pasuk. Okay. Ubenei Kush Sivo v'Chavilo v'Savta v'Ramo v'Savtacha. Okay, they had 5 children. No mention of Nimrod. Why? Because Nimrod claimed that he wasn't the Yalodisha. He claimed that he wasn't the Ben Kush at all. Right? He claimed that he was divine. Right? That he was the Boira Olam himself. So Mamela, when the Torah says it introduces the Bnei Kush. The Bnei Kush is Savo, v'Chavila, v'Savta, v'Rama, v'Savtacha. Okay. Once Avram Avinu did the job on Nimrod, right, and he showed the whole world that was willing to listen that Nimrod was a Yalod Isha, and not more, then Nimrod had to admit that V'kush Yoladas Nimrod. That's what the Zera Berach teaches. He says that until the time of Avram Avinu, until he accounted Avram Avinu, he wasn't gerechent among the children of Cush, because he claimed he wasn't a Yolodisha. He didn't come from Cush. He was descended from who knows where. He was created. He's a creator. But after Avram Avinu, after the vikuach between Avram Avinu and Avram Avinu left the Kivshan Aish alive, and he reduced, and he brought down very, very, very dramatically the image of Nimrod. So then everyone admitted, and Nimrod himself was Vikush Yodaras Nimrod. And he was, from that time on, he had been the Giba Ba'aretz, that's what he wanted to be. But Al Kain, after the Zman of Avram Avinu, Omer, it was only said, Ki Nimrod Giba Tzayed, but Lifnei Hashem, he's subject to Hashem. Right? So going back, this is what the Dar Enish began in one way, and it progressed, it went Meral Ra. From the Dar Enish never imagined that a person would say, Oimele Evan Aviato Eitz Ati Liditoni. No, it progressed. And then finally, in the time of Nimrod, before Avram Avinu's vikuach with Nimrod, so there became a cult of human worship also, and the idea came that that a human being could be divine. He could be the God himself. He wasn't only Yotze Meshasim Vashem Meshasim, right? They weren't Meshasim at all. That he was the deity. He was the God. He was the power, right? Which Avram Avinu was mevatel that to a certain extent. Okay, they didn't go. You see, later on, Paro tried the same thing. He know who Yotze Hamayma, right? He okay. Right. Okay. So now, Haman. It's Gidal HaMelech HaChashverosh es Haman ben Amdosa v'Yinaseu. That he made, he wasn't merely a prime minister, he wasn't merely the superior to the others, but was the Nasehu. And Memela, Haman took this and he was able to kind of manufacture an image of himself. You had to I don't know that exactly that Haman was able to promote himself as Nimrod did before Avram Avinu. That I don't know, but Al Kol Ponim, he made himself into something that Achashverosh didn't really intend even. Okay, which we're going to see. Okay. Mordechai lo yichra v'lo yishtachave. The Sefer, this is the Tiferes Yaakov with the Kol Torda. It was by Rab Shabsai Lifshitz, was Osher V'Dayan. He was a Talmud of the Yetav Lev. He was a Gaoinish Sefer on Chumash and on Megilas Esther. And he says that the first we have here the sugya that those that are holding with the Daf Yomi remember not long ago the sugya of that Oved avodet kachavim ma'ava meira, right? What does it mean, the Ma'ava Meira? Not that he worships the Avodah Zarah because he feels that the Avodah Zarah is really potent, that the Avodah Zarah is an alternative to the but Ma'ava Meira. Okay, that in itself is among the, what exactly is the Ava, what exactly is the Yira, and it's a Machlokas Abaya says Chayim and Rava says Potter. Okay, it's a long sugya, very very difficult sugya, and the Gemara brings in for this the soyer of the Kohen Mashiach. The Kohen Mashiach was over the Avodah Zarah, and the Gemara brings that in the Baraisa. We don't really have the opportunity, to learn the whole Baraisa, but Rava in the end, Rava says that there is a madrege in Avodah Zarah where the person says he's an oima muta lagamre, that it's completely muta to worship the Avodah Zarah. Right? It's completely muta to worship the Avodah Zarah, and for that, if the Kohen or someone else makes that mistake, he brings a carbon chatas. The difference between the Kohen and between someone else, but there is an idea of oima muta. Okay, there's an oima muta. So Tosfos has two lashonos here. What does it mean, oime muta? What is it? I'm sorry. What does it mean that is an oived ma'ava or meira? What does it mean? Abaya says it doesn't matter. Tosfos in the first lashon, Tosfos says that how could it be that Ovid Ma'ava Meira, how could Rava say Potter? How could it be Potter? It's any Avodah Zarah is a Yahara Gvalyava. Okay? So Tosfos' question itself is a little bit difficult to understand because it's Ma'ava Meira, but Al Koponim, Tosfos has an explanation. Tosfos gives an answer. But then Tosfos gives another example, another answer entirely. And Tosfos says that Abaya and Rava would both agree that if a person worships Avodah Zarah me'ava meira, in other words, a standard Avodah Zarah, let's say the Greek deity Zeus, right, or Jupiter, the Roman, it would be chayav even according to Rava. He says that the Tosfos says that the machlokas between Abaya and Rava is going on an Avodah Zarah which was created only for Ava and Yira. In other words, if it's a regular Avodah Zarah, an Avodah Zarah where the Hamon Am believes that this is a creator, and this is a substitute for Hashem, whatever, that is less man de polig. Even Rabbi would say, Ava the year doesn't matter, it's Yehorak Valyava. But you're talking here about something that was an Avodah Zarah that was created for only Ava Yira. And it was created only for Aviyira. Tosfos doesn't give examples. It's difficult to understand. Like I say, it's a very complex, very difficult sugya. But what I want to get to here is what Tosfos says. Tosfos says, Vim Tomel Rava. Rava holds that Ovid Ma'ava V'yira is potter. And we're talking about Ovid Ma'ava V'yira here, not of let's say, of Zeus. You're talking Ava V'yira, where a concept of Avodah Zarah was created that was to be worshipped only Ma'ava V'yira. In other words, only Ava to show love, Almanas L'Kabel Pras, and Yira to avoid Oynish. That's all, that's all. And here Abaya says Osa, and Rava says, Abaya says Chayiv, and Rava says Potter. So Frek Tosfos v'im Tomel Rava Amaylo Hishtacha v'Mordechai LaHaman. Why didn't Mordechai bow to Haman? In other words, because he's saying that Haman was only Meira, right? It was only Meira, like you were saying before. It wasn't. Haman didn't claim that he created the world. He didn't claim that he was an alternative to the Kaviyachal. Haman was Meira, right? And that came about through the toes of the. It evolved from the toes of the Dar Enosh, right? But so in other words, according to the first Lashon and Tosfos, it's not. But according to the second Lashon and Tosfos, that Ava V'yira means that the Gans Avodah Zarah is Ava V'yira. So why, according to Rav who says Potter, why didn't Haman bow to? Well, why didn't Mordechai bow to Haman? Okay. So Tosfos says, "Yeshlama keda'ama b'medrash shahayot salamim al libor." He says because Haman, that the Medrash says, that Haman put. He says that what he did was when the Melech made him, elevated him. So what he did was that he said he had embroidered some kind of avodah zarah and he wore it constantly. He wore this constantly. So Megilas Tosfos and this. So the Haman himself was an avodah zarah only ma'ava v'yira. And according to Rava, if you bowed to that avodah zarah, you would be potter. Okay, but the avodah zarah that he had on his garment, that was a regular avodah zarah, and there, according to that Lashon and Tosfos, that lekula alma yochayev. Okay, very good yochayev. So Tosfos says because of that, Mordechai lo yichav lo yishtachave. He couldn't bow to Haman. Or else he says, "Inami mishum kiddush Hashem kidaminim b'Yerushalmi." He brings that. Okay. Or else it was a kiddush Hashem. Now we'll see in a moment. What does it mean? What was he mekadesh l'shem Shemayim? So here, it says, Reb Shlomo Alkabet says in the Menos HaLevi, he says that Mordechai was from the Shevet Binyamin, Ish Yemini. At the time when Yaakov Avinu met up with Esav and he bowed to Esav, Binyamin wasn't born yet. So Binyamin, his great was Mordechai, and Mordechai had to be mesaken that pigam. Was it a chet? Because I said before that it's very, very difficult to understand because Pashtus, the Ramban says that it was that they're all of the respect that Yaakov Avinu showed Tesu was because Esther Rabbi Sochicha Hagodol. And even so in Zohar HaKodesh it says that Rabbi Yonason brings us from Zohar HaKodesh that the Mara Hashchina, when Yaakov met Esav, the Mara Hashchina intervened between Yaakov and Esav, and Yaakov Avinu bowed to the Shechina. But nevertheless, the Pshuta Shal Mikra is that Zokta Menos HaLevi, that there is a pegam in Yaakov Avinu that he bowed to Esav, and because Binyamin wasn't Ba'os HaMamad, he was able to be masakin it with the Mesiras Nefesh, and that may be what Tosfos meant because of the Chilul Hashem. Kiddush Hashem, because al kolponim, even if Yaakov Avinu was justified and he meant l'Rabbi Sachich Hagod or whatever it was, but midei Kiddush Hashem midei Chil Hashem lo yatzonu. Okay, that could be what he means. So the Menos Halevi goes further. I wrote it down here, and he says that when Yaakov met Esav, how many hishtachavos were there? So he says, Yaakov Avinu bowed 7 times, ad gishta ad ochiv, right, the 7 times, right? The wives, the 4 wives, 4 times. And how many times is that? That's 11, right? And the 11 children, because Benjamin wasn't born yet, and Dinah was in the box anyway, was a total of 22, right? It was 22 ishtachavoyas. 11 for the children, 7 from Yaakov, 4 from the wives. Dinah was in the box anyway. Benjamin wasn't born. It's a stimmt. Everything is right. Very good. Okay. That's what the Menos Halevi says. Comes again the Reb Shabsel Lipschitz, the Kol Toidas, the Osher Vadayan, Shusay Yogan Oleinu. Again from the Groise Talmidim from the Yetav Lev, and he says that Vayhi Ke'omram Be'omram Yom Yom V'lo Shama Alehem is a Kri and there's a Ksiv. We try to read both, right? Because why? Because the Megilas is in Igeres also. It's not if it would be exclusively a Sefer, then you only have to read the Kri, because the Kri is Aloch Moshe Sinai, right? But since it's in Igeres also, so you read the Ksiv as well. Okay, but the Mikar Adin, you read only Ka'omram. Okay. It says Be'omram and Ka'omram is 22, right? It's 22. So Memele, it's Merames here in the Kri and the Ksiv that Benjamin, that Mordechai Atzadik wanted to be Mesaken, the Pegam, that of the 22 Hishtachavoyas that Yaakov Avinu and his family made to Esav. So Memele Vayhi Ke'omram and Be'omram is that he was Mesaken Mordechai lo yichra v'lo yishtachave, right? And with that, his intention was, like Tosa says, make Kiddush Hashem, to be Mesaken the Chav Beis Hishtachavoyas, right? Fine. And that is V'yiftechu Becho Yodei Shrecha, right? V'yiftechu Becho. Okay. Right, he says more. He says that Ke'omram, we don't have to take out the calculators. He says that the Ke'omram is the Oisius, the Misper Eish. Ke'omram is the Gematria as Eish. It's 301, right? And he said, Vayhi Ke'omram Elav Yom Yom. He says that they spoke to him with a fire, with an anger, that Madua To'over es mitzvah Samelach, right? But we find, he says that by the Tanoim and the Amoraim, that someone angered the Tanoim and the Amoraim, and Kol Mokem Shenosun Chachomim Einayim, or the Misa, or the Oini, and he says he made him, the Eish burned the person, right? That the anger of the Talmud Chacham, the Tanoim and the Amoraim, created an Eish, right? Okay. So now, he says that Be'omram, Ke'omram, is the Gematria of Eish. Be'omram, what would the Gematria, if the Gematria of Ke'omram is Eish, then what would the Gematria of Be'omram be? What would it be? It would be 18 less, right? So 201, subtract that, would be 173. 273, right?
301.
What?
283.
301, yeah.
280.
So what would it be?
283.
280, no, I don't think so. So let's see what it says. Okay. It would be he says it would be 283. 283, is that right? Okay, you agree? Okay, 283. What is 283 the gematria? The gematria 283 is pega. So in other words, 18 is the difference between ke omram and ba'omram. 18 is chai. So the difference between ke omram and be'omram is chai. He took from them because Mordechai was angry, and kol mokum shenochnu chachamei meinayim. He took from them the chai, the chiyus, and the geblieben pegorim. Understand? So the ke omram is eish, and the be'omram is 18 less. So the be'omram, the kri and the ksiv show that Mordechai's anger and his kanoas, right, for the kavayochel, and to be mekadesh Hashem shamayim, took from them the chiyus. It took from them the chiyus, and from eish became pega. He took the lives from them. Because the difference between the two is high. That's what he teaches. Right? So Haman Harosha, the way the Tosha says, Al Pi the Medrash, that Haman had a real Avodah Zarah. The Haman himself was an Avodah Zarah of Avayira. So Tosha says, if according to Rava, your potter, right? According to Rava, your potter, so why did Mordechai put himself in such sakona, and he put the Klal Yisrael, he made them subject to Haman's animosity? Why didn't he just bow to? And in the Medrashim that describe it so that Haman ran all over. He tried every way that he could to make it conducive, convenient for Mordechai to bow to him. He didn't want an incident. He wasn't looking for an incident. No one wants an incident because you climb very, very high, and how do you get down? You understand? And just what to inject. I don't want to inject politics, but the confrontation between Zelensky and Trump the other day, right? Whose problem is it now? Whose problem is it? It's Trump's problem, not Zelensky. Zelensky went back to him. He's the darling, he's the hero of the progressive left, the whole world, right? Whose problem is it now? Can Trump now say, well, okay, let the war go on? He can't. This war doesn't end. You understand? If this war doesn't end and he lets Ukraine be totally overrun, so he's a failure in foreign affairs. Okay? I'm not a Republican. I don't vote anyway. If not for this, but not for that. Obviously, he was the better choice. But I'm saying, whose problem is it now? It's Trump's problem. He has the problem, and he realizes it. Okay. Now, Haman, the Medrash says, Haman ran all over, and he tried to do everything. And it says even that he threw a coin on the ground, and he was hoping that Mordechai would bend down to pick up the coin. And like this, okay, I could say, finished. Yeah, because Haman wasn't looking to create an incident where he climbed, right? And then how do you climb down, right? And in the end, he probably understood also, back in the recesses of his mind, he understood that, it's Einochaname Kol HaMeitzah Yisrael Nasa Rosh, but not for long, right? Not for long. It doesn't last. Because the ganze Haman, Kichein Sivolo HaMelech, it says in the Medrash Kichein that Haman only lasted for 70 days. He only lasted for 70 days. And he had a mapola. So Haman made himself an avodah. He was an avodah zarah of Av and Yira, right? He was an avodah zarah of Av and Yira. And that wasn't enough for him. Like we were talking about before, like you were talking about, after you're to a melech, you have to bow, because that same sugya says that that if it was an andratre shel malachim and he worships and he bows you're bowing to the king. There's no avodah zarah there. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, right? Haman wasn't happy with that. That didn't satisfy him. He wanted to make himself a getchke. So what did he do? He took and he made himself, and like this, he created the. So from this we come to the understanding of another issue that transpired. There's something very, very that happened. And the Megillah tells us as we go on, that I'm just skipping over a little bit because I want to get very, very important. I want to get at least tonight to the Kedushas Levi, that is the very, very important. And after Haman's Mapola, when it started, right? Yenofel Tipol Lefonov, right? So it is that Haman came back home. Is Ovel v'chofer rosh. He was, he was very dejected, very depressed. He had lost his daughter. Remember that she spilled the whole pach ashpa on him, and then she committed suicide. So it was Ovel v'chofer rosh. And vayesaper Haman lazera shishta l'choloavov, right? And then they told him, you better watch out because that's what they told him, that nofel tipol lefonov. So the Al Shach HaKodesh says you have only one way here to be machnia yourself to Mordechai. That's what they told, because the Pashas means nofel tipol, you're going to continue falling. But the Al Shach HaKodesh says, he explains, and others later said it as well, that asher hachilos limpov lo suchal. Right, kinofel tipa. The only way is go and bet by Megilas and apologize and yidna agoim lechasodim rachamonim baishonim, and he'll forgive you, right? And he says, and there's one of the mefarshim. He takes the Ashach and he says even more, and he says, how are you going to defeat Mordechai? You won't be able to hang him. How are you going to defeat him? You nofel tipo. You be machnia yourself. Right? You be machnia yourself to Mordechai. Mordechai is rachamonim, baishonim, gom lechasodim. He's going to forgive you. And he's going to be over that way, the timcha zecher amolek, and he's going to be over mechia because he shouldn't forgive you. But he will forgive you. And in that way, you're going to destroy him through goodness. Understand? So I told them, nofel tipol. So the Al Shach HaKodesh says, you understand, Neil, what I'm saying? That he says, this way you're not going to be able to overcome Mordechai. You'll never do it, right? The only way is nofel tipol. Go bow to him, kiss his feet, beg him, and because Yidna Rachamonim, Baishonim, and Gom Lechasodim, he will forgive you. And one of the Mefarshim, I may have been Reb Shlomo Kluger, but after the Al Shach HaKodesh, and he says, and they tell them, and this way you will be able to accomplish what you want, because by doing so, he'll be doing exactly, making the same mistake that his great-grandfather Shaul HaMelech made, right? And like Shaul was removed from the Malchus, he'll be punished, and the Yidden will be punished as well. So change your tactic, right? Okay, that's what they told them. And others, what happened min hashamayim? Vayavhilu lahavi es homen al amishta asher osas Esther. V'sori se hamelech higiu, right? V'sori se hamelech higiu, and the Al Shach HaKodesh points out it wasn't anymore Sorei Hamelech. It was Serisei Hamelech. It was lower. You understand? It was the Capitol Police. You understand? Not the Secret Service. Okay. And Vayavhilo Lahavius Haman, and he was getting ready to go to Mordechai and to tell him, listen, I've made a mistake, and I see that, whatever he was going to tell him, and let's kiss and make up. After all, the Gezeda of Lahashmid Lari isn't until almost another 12 months, another year, so we have time, we're going to be friends, okay? Okay. But Min HaShamayim, they didn't want, right? And Nofel, they wanted the real Pshuta Kemashmo, the Pshuta Shalmika Nofel Tipo. So Vayavhila Lahavius Haman, he didn't have an opportunity even to put this good vice into practice. Fine? Okay. But there's a very difficult Rashi, not a difficult Rashi. Rashi isn't difficult, the one that tries to understand it is the difficulty. That Rashi melamed sheviu, so it says vayavhilu lahavius Haman melamed sheheviuhu bebehola. What is behola? It's confusion, right? In confusion, a rush, a confusion, right? all of the Mefarshim, the Mashor, all of them. I mean, what are the Chazal being mechadish here? The pasuk says Vayav Hillel Avias Haman. It was Be'ala. So the Chazal have Shavir Be'Habala. What are they adding, right? Rashi says V'lo Rochatz Yofa Mitinufa, because the daughter of Haman, not the Bagosen with the whole Pachashpa, right? Right? And Memele, no, you have to go to Esther tonight. I'm invited. We're going out to dinner. Okay, so you have to change. You have to change, right? You have to be presentable. No, but Vayavhilu lahavias Haman melamed shavir bebehala zokt Rashi v'la rochatz yofa metinufa. Frag the Rabbi Yonason. He said, really, it's very, very, no, okay, very quickly. He said, what role did this play in the nest? What does it matter if he was able to shower or he wasn't able to shower? Whether he was able to change his shirt or not change his shirt? What difference does it mean? What difference does it make? And what does this have to do with the nest? How did this contribute to the nest? So the Gaon Yaakov here was one of the Perushim on the Ein Yaakov. He said, "Ata hat aznecha lishmoya niflois," from the Rabbi Yonason. He said, no, that the Talmidim of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai were exploring. They were trying to determine mipnei ma nischayvu soneim shel Yisrael shebois hadakla. What maze val maze ma. And they said shenenu mesudos shela Achashverosh, and he said no, that it can't be only that. Im kein shel shushan yoreg, and he said sheishtachavu l'shtzelem. And they asked him v'chimasa ponim yosh bedava, and he said heim lo osu ela lefonim. Okay, fine. Al koponim the Shlomo Alkabetz makes up shara, and he said that the real chet was the chet of sheishtachavu l'tzelem. But what brought about the punishment was the Suda. Okay. Why now? Because of the Suda. He said if it hadn't been for the Suda, maybe it would have gone on for another few daughters, and at that time they would have done tshuva, whatever. Fine. But the chet of the Suda brought this about, and it brought it like to a crisis, a decision, yes or no. Anyway. So now he says, Rabbi Yonason says, that it says that Esther Amalka came in Shehigia lebeis hatzlomim. She came to Achashverosh. But she went, right? She had no choice. But came in Shehigia lebeis hatzlomim nistalka memena shchina, and his chila litzor keli lo mazav toni. Right? What? Dr. Yonason, why? What happened here? What happened here? He said because the Gezerah was, the Ika Gezerah was because of Hishtachavu Latzelem, so Memela, and now they had to somehow be mesaken that when she came to the Beis HaTzlomim, the chet of Hishtachavu Latzelem was Choyzevenir. The chet came back, and again, it was if in Shamayim Kavayochel they were reminded, and that chet was Choyzevenir, and she started to cry out, Keli Lama Zavtani, what's going to be here? What's going to be? Okay. She came to Achashverosh, and what happened. So why, many of the Tanoim, the Amoraim, Ma Rosa Esther Lahazim in Eshamim, why should they invite them? And the Amoraim and the Tanoim have different reasons. Dr. Bjonason, he said that for a nace, a Yeshua has to have an environment. It has to, and he said that Esther knew that the Beis HaTzlomim, what happened to her in the Beis HaTzlomim, she knew that she couldn't be mevakesh in the palace of Achashverosh because it was Mole Gelulim. How are you going to be mevakesh? Asiyata Deshmaya, Moshe Rabbeinu said, Ketzeisi Asayir, right? Even at Tvila Kala, he couldn't be mispalal in the city because it was Mole Gelulim. So how could she be poil How could she be poil such a Yeshua where the mekatrik was Shishtachava L'Tzelem? So she had a very good idea. She had a very, very good. She's a brilliant idea. It happened right then and there. And she said, you know what, I'm going to find a way to bring Achashverosh to my palace. There, of course, there's no shemetz of avodah zarah. The mokum is a mokum tohor because she was nizer even macholas. She was she kept Shabbos. She did everything. She said, I'm going to bring him to my palace, and there's no shemetz, there's no rem of avodah zarah, and there it's a mokum where the nest that's needed for this Yeshua to occur can happen. Okay, very good. Okay, very good. Why did she want Haman? Okay, so it's not really time to go back. I told you many times, she wanted Haman because it was Yontiv. The Suda was Yontiv, and it says, and so she couldn't. How could she cook for Achashverosh? Achashverosh was a goy, but Haman was an Evet Kanani, and he had a din ki Yisrael. So Mamela, she brought Haman that she was mevashel, right? She was mevashel for him, right? She was mevashel for him because you could be mevashel for an Evet Kanani because the Evet Kanani is mechuyev b'mitzvahs keisha. So Mamela, that was the chochma there. Yova Melech, right? And it says, and that's why the post says El Amishta. It doesn't say the first time it says El Amishta Asher Osisi Lo, not Lohem, right? Because the Hachona was for Haman. No, how could you, and the din is in the Bryson Beit is Memale Isha Kadeira. You need one piece. You can be male. You can make a whole pot of food for one person because it cooks better when there's a quantity in the pot. Okay, this was her brilliant idea, right, Chaim? This was a brilliant idea, wasn't it? That she's going to bring him there, and she's going to be, that's going to be an atmosphere, and it's going to be a Hoya Machanecha Kodesh, and there she's going to be Poel Yeshuas. Very good idea. What happens? Haman shows up, you understand, in his finery. He probably comes, with his whole crew, his whole entourage. What do they call the retinue? What do they call it? Right? He comes in, he sits down. How are you? Very nice of you to come. Very nice to have you. Wonderful to see you. Blah, blah, blah. And what happens? He sits down, and she takes a look. Weiter, he has the tzelem on his baguette. No? Well, what are you going to do? The whole reason that I brought you here was to be mevakesh because v'hoya machanecha kodesh. There can't be Achashverosh's palace which was Mole Gilulim, is V'ektesias Ha'ir, even at Tfilah Kala, Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't be mispalel. So how can you be poil the Yeshuas of the Klal Yisrael when the Kitrig is Shishtachol? How can you be, I brought him here, you brought him here? No. Right, he's sitting here with his Getchke. Right? And what am I going to do? What was Tutman? She had no, but he said, what do you want? She said, because that was already Cholamoid. So it could be, it didn't have to be Lo, it could be Lahem, right? No? What is she going to do? And what happens if he shows up tomorrow again in the same uniform? Right? The Nodad Shnas HaMelech. And I wish I had time to clear that this mice with the Nodad Shnas HaMelech till it came to where Achashverosh commanded Haman Maher Kachas how the Al-Shech HaKodesh is masber. I mean, it's half. Only one thing I must tell you, even though it's late, because I wouldn't. I would be depriving you if I hadn't. It says, "Vayomer HaMelech mi bechotzer, v'Haman boel el chatzer HaMelech hapanimis." Directly Al Shechakot doesn't make sense. First, it should say v'Haman bo, and then the Melech says mi bechotzer. Why did the Melech say mi bechotzer first and then v'Haman bo? Right? Zog the Al Shechakot. Why? Because mi bechotzer doesn't go. Achashverosh saw that he lacks loyalty. His servants and the people around him are, because he doesn't reward for services that are done to him. You see, the here Mordechai Tzaddik, saved your life, and you didn't recognize it, right? Manasseh Yakar Gdula Lamot Lo Nasi Modgunish, nothing, right? Lo Nasi Modava. Zok the Melech mi bechotzer. He said, I want to know who of the nobility was in charge of my affairs on that day. Who should I blame? You understand? Mi bechotzer, because there was always noble people in the Chatzer HaMelech who took care of these details for the Melech. And the Melech said that the officer of that day should have been in charge of seeing to it that Mordechai was properly rewarded. Mi bechotzer. Who was in charge that day? Who was derelict in his duty? Right? That is a good chance. I don't have to have the rest. Purim, Yetz Hashem. I believe that will be mashlim. No, there comes Esther Amalka. She had no alternative. She said, "The kosher adover levem yava melech v'lamishta asher Esther lohem." Right? Umocha Esther kedvar melech. Meanwhile, she had a sleepless night, because what happens if he comes again? But balaylo anuda noda dashnas hamelech malka shaloylam, right? Malka shaloylam. And he said, okay, we're going to be masaking everything. You understand? Everything is going to come well, right? So Mamela, what happened? Haman came, and he said, who could the melech? Only me. Who else? Only me. I told him, no, not so fast, because the melech was very suspicious also already. He told him, maher kachasa, not only do it, but maher, you understand, maher kachasa, right? Yeah, and maher, no, Eli, was it the oisius maher, bedaiti be the oisius maher, was it this? Mora, bitter, right? Maher is mora. You understand? It was Mora, Hashem bitter for Haman. Right, Eli? Right, my great-grandson. Right? Maher also. Right? Maher is Mora. Right? You're finished, in other words. Very good. No, okay. But Haman didn't think, because when he came home, he thought, it's nothing, I had a bad day. How did Joe Biden say after the debate? I had a bad night. You know what I mean? You say they had a bad night, I had a bad day. Right? Okay, nothing. But meanwhile, okay. What happened in Hashemayim, you understand, is nofel tipol lefanov. So Haman was talking, and they were telling him, you know what, you have to be machnia yourself to Mordechai. That's the only way you're gonna come out of this in one piece. Be machnia yourself to Mordechai. Okay. And Haman he accepted. He said, okay, now let me go. I have to shower and I have to change. And he said, should I wear this? Should I wear that? Should I do this? Should I do that? And he says also the Al-Shech HaKodesh, he says, because he says that they came because it was really, he says it's a tzad that it was Malachim. Because normally when a person comes, you see him from the window, you see him, he's approaching the house, you see him from a block away. And there was Pitom, they were there, right? They were there. They didn't think, right? There could have been even Malachim. Sorry, the Amelech, the Malka Shaloylam. Vayavhilu lohavi es hamen melamed sheviu bebahala. Zokt Rashi, what does it mean? Right? That l'rachat yofemet metinufai. What does it mean? Zokt Rabbi Yonason. What he says, the God Yaakov says, he says, is hat aznach lishmoya niflos. Zokt Rabbi Yonason, that Haman's idea was he's going to shower, he's going to spritz himself, make himself acceptable and presentable. He's going to get dressed, and he's going to put the getchke back on, like he always does, and go to the Mishnah. But Vayavhilu l'rochatz yofem etinufa, he couldn't. Vayavhilu melamed shavir bebehola, he couldn't. He came in the same schmutzige begodim, right? That I heard once. He said that Shlomo Shadron said, "It's a gestunken von dem gestunken." That's what he said, right? Right? No, Memele, B'shas, he took Mordechai around and said, Kochia, he didn't wear the getchke. Then, so Memele, they brought him now, Min HaShamayim, gefiert that they didn't allow Haman to change to his evening clothes that he could put on the getchke. That's what Rashi teaches, that he wasn't able to even bathe. He wasn't even able to wash himself. No, so he wore the same thing. And on that garment that he was walking around with Mordechai saying, Kocha Yasar Leish, rather there was no getchke. So Memela min hashamayim, they gave Esther the opportunity and that she was able now to be mechayim v'hoyo machanecha kodesh, and she was able to be poiled the Yeshua. Right? That's what this is the Rabbi Yonason. So just I want to. What time is it, Yankee?
10:15.
What? You're joking, I think. Are we standing?
10:13.
What?
10:13.
Oh, 13, okay. I told you it was. Are we standing time or daylight savings? So I'm just going to very, very briefly, I want to, the Megilas Esther says, Nitten leDoresh. V'chol avdei HaMelech Hashem, that's what we began with. V'chol avdei HaMelech Hashem b'shar HaMelech korim mishtachavim lahom and kichen u'modcha lo yichra v'lo yishtachavim. Was Mordechai from the Avdei HaMelech? No, Mordechai wasn't from the Avdei HaMelech. You see a raya that Vayomer HaMelech HaChasheresh Vayomer Esther HaMalka. Before he only spoke to her in public through an intermediary, through a Meturgaman. When she revealed himself and he knew that she was from the children, from the family of Shaul HaMelech, that was, major yichus, is Vayomer Esther. He spoke to her directly. Okay? So Mamela Mordechai Tzaddik was known. He was Mordechai ben Shimi, ben Yoye, ben Kish, Ish Yemini. It was known that he was the grandson of Shaul HaMelech. He wasn't Mavdei HaMelech. So when V'chol Avdei HaMelech Asher b'shar HaMelech Korem Eshtachavim Lahamon, right? The Mordechai shouldn't have been included in that gezer. He maybe has to show him, maybe tip his hat, say, good morning, sir, how you doing, how did you sleep, how was your breakfast, how was your this, but he's not expected to bow to him, he's not Avdei HaMelech. There's a Chusa Yogan Aleinu, the Heilige Baditche Verov, he says that V'chol Avdei HaMelech Asher b'shar HaMelech Korim Mishtachavim Lahamon Ki Chein Tziva Lo HaMelech. He says, Kichein Tziva Lo HaMelech goes on before, and it goes, Kichein Tziva HaMelech U'modcha Lo Yichra V'lo Yishtachaveh. He specified that Mordechai is exempt from this gezerah, right? Kol Avdei HaMelech Asher b'shar HaMelech Korim Mishtachavim Lahamon Kichein Tziva Lo HaMelech. U'modcha Lo Yichra V'lo Yishtachaveh. Why? Because Kichein Tziva HaMelech that Mordechai Lo Yichra V'lo Yishtachaveh. He specified that individuals of Mordechai's rank, lo yishchar v'lo yishtachaveh. Right? That's what he said. No, so Mena, what do you want from Mordechai? He said, yeah, right, you're practicing the Megillah.
No, that's what he says. That doesn't add up. It's the asnachta there doesn't add up.
Yeah, okay, maybe he's a man, Balkore. Okay, you're right. But that, as Al Capone says that Avdei HaMelech Hashem Mishtachavim Lahaman Kichein Tziva Lo HaMelech, but Tziva Lo HaMelech U'modcha Lo Yichra. Mordechai is exempt. People of this rank, of this stature, are exempt, right? Very good. Vahi Ka'omram Eilav Yom Yom V'lo Shama Le'madu Ato Oiva Es Mitzvahs HaMelech. What should Mordechai have said to them? He should have said, well, what do you want from me? That the Kichein Tziva Lo HaMelech, I'm exempted. This doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm not obligated, right? I'm not obligated to show this deference to Haman, right? Madua ata, right? But what is it? Vahi ke'omram elov yom yom v'lo shama aleihem vayagidu laHaman liros hayamdu divrei Mordechai ki higid lahem ashehu Yehudi. Zogt the Heilige Kedushas Levi, Baditche Verov, Schutz the Yogan said that Mordechai should have said to them, you know what, leave me alone. You're bothering me, you're harassing me. I'm going to report you to the Secret Service. You're bothering me. What are you harassing me for? I'm totally exempt from this. But Mordechai didn't do that. because Mordechai wanted to be mesakin the pagam of Yaakov Avinu, the v'yiftechu becho the hishtachavoes. He wanted to be mesakin this. He wanted to be mesakin the chet shishtachavu letzelem. And so Mele Mordechai Tzaddik told them ki higid lahem ashu yudi. He didn't tell them that I'm exempt. He told them that I'm not buying ki higid lahem ashu yudi. He said I have nothing to do with Haman. So another, and that's why Esther sent. That's why it says in the Targum Sheni Zuk the Kedushas Levi. Esther sent him. What are you doing? Why are you just enraging Haman? Why are you antagonizing Haman? So Frank the Kedushas Levi, he said, what do you mean that? What do you mean Esther didn't know that he had the getchke? She didn't know that Avodah Zarah is Yehoreg Valyava? Was she telling B'fahesia yet to be over Avodah Zarah? He said, no, she had one time at him. Why don't you just say? Why do you have to say Kigir Lemashu Yehudi? Why do you have to be so defiant and antagonize Haman? Tell them that because you're exempt. Why? That's what Tosfos says. Tosfos says that according to Rabbi that says that Ma'ava V'yira is Potter, right? Why didn't Mordechai bow to Haman? So Tosfos one teretz because of the Getchke. And then Tosfos says another, and the two terutzim aren't, the Arach Laner says the two terutzim aren't to one another, right? That Mordechai HaTzadik, he said that when it says that he didn't bow, right, it was because of the Getchke. But what was the Kiddush Hashem? The Kiddush Hashem was that he didn't use that as a teret. The Kiddush Hashem, and because it says the Arach Laner says that the two terutzim and Tosfos don't argue. The two terutzim and Tosfos, that the first teretz was that he couldn't bow even according to Rava because he had the Getchke. And so why didn't you tell him? Why do you antagonize him? Why do you tell him Asher Higid Le'Mashu Yehudi? Tell him that you're exempt, right? That you're not the Avdei HaMelech. You're the grandson of Shaul HaMelech, and Mordechai lo yichra v'lo yishtachaveh, right? Kichein tzivul HaMelech. Zok says no, because he was mekadesh the Shem Shemayim to be mesakin the chof beis hishtachavoyas that Yaakov Avinu and the four wives and the children created. Even though they created a pagam and he came to be mesaken this and to be mesaken the hishtachavo shishtachavu letzelem. Okay, Rabbi Chananya ben Akashya Omer Rotza Kadosh Baruch Hu Lazakas Yisrael Leficha Chibolem. Alti, do me a favor, get me from the closet my hat, okay? Hang it. Leficha Chibolem Torah Mitzvah on the left side. Chibolem Torah Mitzvah Shenemar. We'll daven Ma'ariv Adonai Chafetz Leman Sidkoi Yagvu Tele V'Yadi Kadal V'Kadash Shmei Rabo Baruch Yisai V'Amis Malchus V'Yatzmach V'Kanei V'Kanesh Hayei Chalim Yemechanu Chayei V'Chol Beit Yisrael La'ad Olav Izman Karim V'Mu Amein Tabach V'Shma V'Shno Avis Natei Tadav V'Shalei V'Salav Shmei V'Kudisho B'Richu V'Lo Mikol V'Choso V'Shiraso V'Shvoso V'Nechamoso D'Amiram V'Yomno Amen. Hadisha v'Arabbanon v'Talmidei Hon v'Kol Talmidei Hon v'Kol Mondos Kibarais Tibrasa Seinan v'Hatam Masnal v'Lohon v'Chanish v'Marab v'Chinu v'Chista v'Rachim v'Chayin Hadichim v'Rabbi v'Damin Kadavan v'Shmaya v'Arabim Romein v'Marab v'Shmaya v'Chayim v'Lein v'Kol Yisrael v'Romein ורחמו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל במרו אמן. Who did that, Margaret?
I didn't have